All right, so the week 8 we have learned use case diagram. So this lecture actually give you a kind of an idea how we're going to develop use case diagrams for the Lilydale or Acme Garage case study, and then you can apply the same concept to your subsystem, right? So let me go through the notes again. I'll skip through the first part because we don't need that one. Those basically focus on what do you call these uh, entity, so domain models. So we don't need that at the moment. Um, so we need to focus on use cases, right? So you know what do you mean by the use case? We already identified the use case in the event table. But in this case, probably we need to slightly modify what we have. Yes, Precious, I'm recording the class, okay? I'm recording, I just switch on the recording button. So the use case diagram, so use cases that you have identified earlier in your subsystem in using event table probably maybe sometimes need to modify it a little bit. Um, um, by the way, I'm recording this at the moment, so you can listen to it later on. Okay. Um, so so that is up to you, because in earlier version what we have developed in our event table, probably it's very closely related to um, um, structured approach or structured model data flow diagrams, right? Sometimes you may need to little bit adjust your use cases when it comes to use case models or use case diagrams, right? So here we are identifying the actors, okay? Actors. Now, what do you mean by that? Actor is a role. We need to identify who is the role played. Who is actually interacting with the computerized system or computerized application. So we identify the role that the actor is performing. Okay. So in your case, your subsystem wise, it can be a doctor, it can be a nurse, it can be even it can be patient, right? Or maybe some suppliers who supplying stationery, etc., etc. Or the accounting department person or whoever, right? That depending on the subsystem you are talking about. And then all these actors are placed outside the automation boundary, right? So now we are talking about the automation boundary, okay? But in the data flow diagram, we didn't actually distinguish the automation part, right? We just simply focus on the system itself. So whoever sits inside the system are the internal agents, right? Internally, they are performing some activities. They are represented in processes, okay? So whoever sits outside the system, that means outside the scope of your system, subsystem, we treated them as an external agent, right? They simply interacting with your subsystem, but they're not doing any activities, right? They just supplying information and receives information, right? The classic example is the client or the patient, right? So patient provide patient details and receive some services and receive some information. That's it. They are not performing any activities in your subsystem, right? But the nurse, maybe front office people, or maybe the doctors, they may performing some of the activities in your subsystem. It depends on which subsystem you are focusing on, right? So if you focus on, say, for example, accounting kind of bookkeeping system or something like that, doctors are not performing. They are external agent to the bookkeeping, right? They just supplying some information. Okay. So similarly, you need to identify who is. So that is what we are focused on data flow diagram. But in use case diagram, whoever we are we think that interact with your application, it need to be treated as an actor, right? So that's the difference between these two diagrams, right? Because their focus is completely different. Um, so yes, so we used to construct event table, right? So here in this case also probably you can modify a little bit, or sometimes in some use cases that you have identified, probably you can use the same as is, right? Depending on how you have how you have determined, or how you have define your use case. Okay. So the use case diagram, basically we are showing the automation boundary of your system. Okay. So it is again the unified modeling language. We are using UML notations again. So you can use a diagrams.net. I will show you how to use it. Okay. So the basic notations, this is your subsystem, right? So this box is your subsystem, and inside this subsystem you have use cases, right? And then you need to show who are the actors invoking these use cases. In your case, it can be a doctor, it can be a nurse, it can be a front office clerical staff, right? Or even it can be a patient, right? So it depends on who we allow to interact with certain use cases. So you know what do you mean by the use case. So in this slide, so remember that when you name the use case, because this is what I have actually found in your answers, because you are not complying with some of the students forgot to use verb and noun, right? Sometimes they use very big sentences to describe, so we don't use sentences to describe use case. We just use one verb, one noun. Okay. And that's something you need to actually think about. um, so when you determine the use cases, and then when you determine who is the role in interact with that particular use case, we can actually link it like this, right? So the first thing you need to do is actually you need to do two things. First thing you need to do is to clarify the roles, right? So think about your subsystem. Who are the which actors will going to interact with your subsystem. So you need to determine that first, right? That is number one, step number one. Step number two is determine the use cases in your subsystem, right? So these are the two steps you need to think, and then you may think about so here we given, for example, now once you've done that, you need to think about do we need any use cases that take some services from other use cases, right? So for example, here the student borrow some books, right? So student, when the student borrowing the books, right? That is the use case. Probably student need to actually check whether the book has been reserved, or whether he or she has some fines, right? So that means this use case need to take the services from the other use cases. So what do you mean by taking services from the other use case? Probably when you design an application, in your screen you may have some kind of a buttons that you design, that we can actually go and check whether that particular book has been reserved, or whether I have any fines, right? So that means these are two other use cases in our system which provide some services to the concerned use case, right? So you can see how to include that. So you just put the include keyword with this symbol, and then make sure that you use the dash arrows pointing towards the new use case. So that means the existing use case taking the service from the other use case. That is what we mean by that. Or common, we can call it as a common subroutines, because some other use cases also may take some services from these use cases as well, right? So that is include relationship. And then we have the extend relationships, right? What do you mean by the extend relationship? If I want some optional functions to be added to existing use case, I can use the extend relationship. So it's actually the opposite side of include relationship, right? So here in this case, so this scenario, a client ordering some foods, right? At the same time, they may order some wine, right? So that is the extension, extend. So you can see the extend relationship, um, the arrow pointing, the dash arrow pointing to the main use case. Okay, this is the extra functionality that we like to include in our concern use case. Okay. Um, and sometimes in some books they actually name these lines, right? For example, here you can see ordering food use case can be accessed by clients. So what do you mean by this line is clients are placing an order, right? And then what do you mean by this waiter? In this case, a waiter is accessing. Waiter is not actually ordering the food, but once the client places an order, waiter receives the order. That is what we mean by that. Now remember here, we don't put any arrows. Okay, when you link the actor with the use case, don't put any arrows. Okay, there's no arrows. Arrows comes inside the between the use cases. If you have extend, if you have extend relationship or include relationship, only you have the arrows, right? But you can actually clarify it by what do you mean by this arrow, by placing kind of a text saying what do you mean by that. Okay. But in some cases we don't need, for example here, so this one there's nothing has been placed because it's straightforward. All right, so here also you can see the client paying for the food. So pay food use case actually activated by two actors, like here, cashier and the client, right? So what do you mean by pay for food? Means the client actually paying using the system, and then cashier receives the payment or accept the payment using the system. That's what we mean by that. And then of course, when you place the extend or include relationship, basically the mostly extend relationship, you can put kind of any conditions, right? For example, we include the drink wine extended functionality to eat food use case only if the wine was served, right? Only if the wine was served, or only if the wine was uh, mm, requested, right? So if that's something that we can consider in the extend relationship. Okay, can put some conditions like this, right? So these are the basic things you need to actually consider when you design your subsystem use case diagram. And then the use case diagram can be shown in different ways. Now I can show the use case diagram from the actor's perspective. For example, if your subsystem have, say, several actors, say for example doctor, then the client, and then the receptions, right? If you have three actors, you can have several use case diagram. Okay, one for patient, one for reception, one for the doctor, right? So that is a one way, right? So we can list the whole, or otherwise we can actually include, we can have a one use case diagram to show everything in every use case and every actor in your system, right? So some actually mostly in when you go to the industry, you will see we produce different diagrams, right? We will usually produce one diagram to show your whole subsystem, right? It's like a context diagram, right? So what we are doing, showing the context diagram, it's a bird's eye view of the system. So say similarly, we can have a one use case diagram to show the all actors and all use cases and all these relationship in a one diagram, and then we can break down and show the use case diagram for each individual actor as well. Okay, so let's see what actually your assignment asking you to do, and then let's do the same approach in our Lilydale garage, so you can actually apply the same concept to your subsystem. Right now, let's go to the assignment and see what they actually ask us to do. It's, I think, in the module. Yeah, project specification. So let me take the assignment. Okay, let's go to the right. So you already completed this stuff. Right now you are in here, isn't it? So this is what you need to submit this week. Is it this week? Well, let me actually have a close look. End of week 9. Yeah, so end of week 9 use case diagram. Yeah. So if I go back to the marking scheme, so this is what you need to focus on. So it must contain one diagram for the whole subsystem. Well, this is what I have told you, right? One diagram for whole subsystem, and two diagrams to represent two user perspectives, right? So you may have a doctor, you may have a receptionist, right? Or you may have a doctor and maybe a client or maybe a patient. Okay, so take two actors, you can develop two different use case diagram for to both of these actors. So basically you need to actually submit three diagrams, one for the whole subsystem and then the two diagram for two actors, separate actors, right? Yeah, so that's what it says here. Okay, right. So let's actually now let's go to our assignment, and let's go through the assignment and see whether we can apply the same concept. Okay, right now what is the first step? First step is we need to read the case study and then determine roles played by each actor, because here in this case study they use the name, right? Name of the actors, right? But we need to determine who are the which roles we are talking about, right? Now if you assume this is a subsystem that you are developing, let's see how we proceed, right? So what I will do actually, I'll open the Excel spreadsheet. That's easier for me. So let me open Excel spreadsheet first. Okay, so Excel spreadsheet. So the first step is, now this is step 1. Step 1, I will determine the roles, right? So determine the roles. Okay, so let's actually go through this. Now, when you read this, so who are the people involved in this case? Now, they're talking about the Mary and Kim, right? So let me actually take the highlight. So Mary and Kim, they are looking after the customer inquiries, right? So let me highlight the important things. And then also they maintain the customer profile. So what do you mean by the maintain customer profile means? They they are the one who let me highlight. So they are the one who create, retrieve, update, and delete the custom in the system, right? Right. So I highlight that as well, and they generate the custom invoices, right? Generating custom invoices. And then process invoices. What do you mean by process invoices? Means probably remember the suppliers. When the suppliers send invoices, they process these invoices, right? That might be the case. So we just highlight for the safe side. And then the payments, right? So all the payments also handled by these Mary and Kim. So let me actually um, um, take Mary and Kim, and then record it here, right? This is the first role we have. So who are the Mary and Kim in this case? We can say them as kind of a reception, or maybe we can say the administrators, right? So Mary and Kim looks like an administrators, right? Like for our point of view, looks like administrators. So they just do the major processing activities in this particular case study, right? So what I will do is, rather than saying Mary and Kim, I can actually name them as a receptionist. Actually, the much better role probably looks like administrators, right? Because they are doing multitasking work. So I'll just do administrator. So that is the first actor, right? So this is the first actor I have, right? Administrators. So what are their tasks? So let me put the tasks. They record the customer inquiries. So record customer inquiries. So looks like a kind of a use case, right? So we already remember we already identified these, right? But I'll adapt the use cases to suit to this condition, because now we are going to an since we are moving to object oriented. You can actually use the same event table that you have created, but in this case I'll try to use a different approach. Okay, so custom inquiries, yes. So one use case, record custom inquiries, or maybe you can say, rather than record custom inquiries, you can say the process custom inquiries, right? Process custom inquiries. And then maintaining the customers, right? So maintaining, so rather than having create customers, retrieve customer, update customer, delete customer, I just write the use case to handle all 4 instances. Maintain customer or maintain customers. Okay, so maintain customer. Maintain customer, right? So maintaining means updating, deleting, adding, etc., etc., everything regarding customer. And then what else? They generate the custom invoices, right? Okay, generate custom invoices. And then the process invoices and the process the payments. Generate custom invoices. So rather than saying process invoices, I just say process supply invoices. So that's a better name in this case, right? And then they also process the payments, right? Okay, so let's put that. or otherwise we can say process, or maybe we can actually have a two use case in this case, um, because customers payments need to be handled and supplier payments need to be handled, right? So rather than having a one use case, let me break down that into two, right? So let's say process customer payments, okay, and then process um, supplier payments, right? Okay, so so I just distinguish this process supplier invoices and process supplier payment. So sometimes you can actually include both. I remember, I think in the EFD event table, we handle these two instances in the same use case. So, but in this time, I just um, um, have a two separate use cases. Okay, so you can actually go on like that as well. Okay, so you can see verb and noun, verb and noun. Okay, so these are the activities or use cases handled by these administrators, or these are the actors. Okay, right. So let's now go to the second one. So then they are talking about uh, being Bill and Ben, right? So Bill and Ben, let's highlight that. So they are the car mechanics, right? They are the mechanics. Okay, so let me highlight that. And then there's another actor called Peter. They are doing the ordering process. What do you mean by the ordering process? They are the one who contacting the suppliers, and then inventory ordering handled by the Peter, right? So basically, you can see there are two another actors comes into play. Mechanics, right? These two mechanics. That's the one actor. That's the role they are playing. And then warehouse, maybe we can say the Peter. Maybe what is the Peter? Maybe we can say the ordering clerk, right? Peter as an ordering clerk. So let's actually distinguish that now. So mechanics. So I'll keep few rows here to identify the use cases, and then ordering clerk, right? That's the third row. So basically, looks like there are three actors, right? But of course, we need to take the customer as well. So the people who repair in the vehicles. So 1, 2, 3, 4 actors now. Okay. Or maybe the owners, right? Because they I can remember that the owners they are looking some reports. Can say management. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 actors. Now let's go through the mechanics and see what kind of things they are performing. So when the customers come to have their cars repaired, their initial contact is with the Kim or Mary. Before Kim or Mary accept their request, they check their database system to ensure any previous work that the customer has requested has been paid for satisfactory. This can be generated by their current computer system. Okay, when the customer's car registration number is entered into the computer, the system will provide the relevant feedback. Okay. Okay, so that actually can be handled by this use case, yeah, process custom inquiries. So looks like the process custom inquiries handled by actually can be invoked by these two actors, right? These two actors. So let's assume that actually what I will do is when I reading this, I'll put the second actor name here so I know exactly this process handled by, or this use case invoked by administrator plus the customer. Okay. Okay. So what else? Okay, so they're talking about the outstanding payments. The customer will require to pay all outstanding payments. Customer details are kept in the customer file. So in this case, we don't actually consider any data store, so we don't need to worry about that. So we can ignore this stuff. And then once all has done, then the Kim or Mary will accept the vehicles and pass the job to the mechanics. Right now, we comes to mechanics. They will check the car and then identify the problems. Okay. Right. So they actually basically identifying the problem. Right. The problem, we can have a kind of a use case to handle that. Diagnosing the problem. Right. Diagnose problems, because they need to make a kind of a note in the system what is the problem is that, right? So basically mechanics, that's, so this use case exclusively invoke or handled by the mechanics. Yeah. So let me highlight that use case. So identifying the problems, and also parts required and estimated completion time. Right, so they actually need to record the parts required and estimate the completion time as well, right? So maybe we can have two different other use cases to handle these two, right? So let's write that. We can say record parts required. So that's one use case, and estimate the time. Right, there's another use case. Okay, so right, so that's we highlighted. So what they say, what it says, they will need to complete the forms which include all the relevant information and forward to Kim or Mary, who will check the list and calculate the cost. Okay. All right. So calculating the cost of repair is handled by actually Mary or Kim, right? Okay. So let's. So that means. So you can see that these three kind of information, right, should be accessed by Kim or Mary as well, right, as an administrator. So that means I would say these three use cases, probably administrators also responsible to handle, right? So I just record that here. So I know that these two can be handled, or these three can be handled by administrators as well. So maybe they may record the information and they are accessing the information, right? Administrator. Okay. Okay. Right. So let's move to the next part. So after the job is completed, the labor hours and the parts used recorded the job file. Yes. The mechanics will notify the Kim or Mary, who will then prepare the invoices and call the customers to collect the cars. Customers can pay when they pick up the cars or within the 30 days, right? So process generate custom invoices. Actually, I will name this one as a process custom invoice. Okay, don't write that, rather than generate process custom invoice. So they are informing the customers, right? So that means this custom invoice use case can be accessed by the customers as well, right? Because when they, so we should have a give a kind of a some kind of interface the customer that they can access the custom invoice. And then they say some conditions of payment. So we don't actually need to consider this one. Now the payment, the customer payment can be accessed by the customer as well, right? Okay. So you can see, so 3 use cases here can be accessed by both administrator and the customer. Okay. So we are not giving access to them these processes for the customer, right? Right. And then what else? Now let's go to at the end of every week, right? So at the end of every week, the computer system will generate the reports. Okay. So generating the reports, that is another use case, right? Right. So at the end of the week, now this one is automatic process, right? Handled by this is a temporal event. Remember the temporal event, right? So how do we handle the temporal event? So let's go to our system and see. Sorry, so our class notes and see whether what they are suggesting to handle the temporal event, right? So you can actually have a separate what do you call a separate actor like, here can you see the time, right? So separate actor like time which invoking some generate a use case like generate reports. So let's have another actor called the time actor. Okay, so there is a time, so that is actually the time actor generate what kind of report is it? Generate job and customer report, right? Generate jobs and customer reports. Okay, so we can say generate jobs and customer reports. So that use case handled by the time actor, right? So now we have more actors, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 actors basically. Okay. Possibly actually the management, eventually the management will receive this, right? So maybe we can say, okay, so let's take the management as a secondary actor here. So we know the management has access to this as well. Okay. Right. Come to the stock handling part. Acme needs to keep the stock of frequently used parts, examples spark plugs, oil filters, etc., etc., which are purchased regularly from suppliers, right? So when you read that, you should know that we need to have a kind of process to handle the purchases, right? So how to create purchase order? It has to be handled by a different use case. Okay, so let's me open a use case called create purchase orders. So I just got PO, right? Create purchase orders handled by inventory ordering clerk or just ordering clerk. Okay. And then it actually goes to the suppliers. Right now, suppliers. Now there are 2 types of suppliers: overseas suppliers and local suppliers. But I will actually use one actor called supplier. Okay. So supply is another actor now. So that means, so when you create the purchase orders, supplier can access it. using the system, right? So probably I will use the supplier as a secondary uh, secondary actor here. Okay. Right. So what else we have? Acme supplies mainly local. However, some special parts for expensive cars they also purchase from the overseas suppliers. Okay. So the computer system will monitor the stock levels automatically for those parts from the local suppliers where the inventory level drop down to the quantities 3, then the notification will be sent to the Peter, right? Stock level. Okay, stock level drops. Then that notification sent to the Peter, right? So that means there is another. It's not the time-based event, right? We need to have another event. What do you call this? Uh, Something internally generated event, right? So stock level goes down. Okay. So let's say a use case to handle that. Maybe we can say uh, uh, inform uh, let's say inform low stock levels, right? Inform low stock levels, right? So that is generated by the system, but I would say that it can be invoked by um, ordering clerk as well. So I just make sure that because it's a use case generated by the system. Okay, so it belongs to the ordering clerk. Rather than having a temporal event internal, the other internal event, I don't have a kind of a separate actor for that, right? Because it's generated by the system. But in this case, I use the time as a separate actor because time need to be generated by some system, because we are not going to handle the time generating event in our subsystem, because I am assuming there's another system like Outlook, what some other application are sending these details or invoking or sending these sort of time-based details to our subsystem. That is why I took time as as another actor. But in this case, I don't use another actor, right? Because it's uh, internal system generated use case. But I use it under the ordering class because they can actually invoke that as well. Okay, low stock level. Right. So okay, so they are talking about different notification for the locals, so local source parts and overseas source parts. So we can actually handle the both of these triggers by the same use case. So I don't need to have use case to handle local and international supplier notifications, right? So I just use the same use case. Required. So once they have reliable supplier, they tend to stick with them. Yes. So they only ever have one supplier for each part. Supply details are recorded and filled in the database. In the case where the stock is ordered, the details of the order are recorded on the order file. Yes, so we already know that, but we are not going to handle that in our use case diagrams, right? Peter works in the office and maintains the ordering process. Yes, there he is creating the purchase orders. All parts are recorded in the database parts file. The parts database should be identified to the suppliers, allowing Peter to create, add, update, delete, and modify both suppliers and the parts table. Right. Now it says the Peter is doing this, right? Right now, that is something we need to actually think about. Okay. So Peter is creating, adding, updating, deleting, and modifying the suppliers, right? So the maintenance of the suppliers handled by the Peter as well, right? So like maintaining the customers, we need to have another use case to maintain suppliers. Okay. So that is handled by the ordering clerk. Okay. Right. So we are not actually going to give an access to that use case like here, because it's internally handled by this by our their own staff, right? So we are assuming that we are not going to give any direct access to the suppliers, right? Same here, okay? But the payment in this case, yes, customer can pay, so maybe using online portal. Okay, that's why we are giving them an access here, right? And then what else? There's one more actually, and also creating, adding, updating, and deleting the parts table as well. So maintaining parts, right? Maintaining parts handled by the ordering clerk as well, right? Um, right. So if the ordered parts haven't arrived within the 10 days, the system automatically notifies the Peter, who will contact the suppliers immediately, right? So there is a time-based use case need to be there in order to inform the Peter that the parts are not actually arrived, right? So let me have another time-based use case. What do you call that? Maybe inform uh, late parts, something like that. Inform late parts of time. But in this case, I will put the secondary actor as ordering clerk. Uh, order clerk. So actually, we can write order, just order clerk, not order. That's a better name. Okay. Okay. Now here you can see the customer is I listed as a secondary part, but it's okay. Right. The computer system will generate the several reports by the end of each month. Example, ordering parts with the suppliers, delivered orders, unpaid invoice reports, and unfilled order reports. These reports will be sent to the Acme's owner, Jeff. Right, so let me have another use case to handle that. Generate, say, supplier and parts reports. So let's assume all these stuff are handled by that use case. Okay. All right. So let's come to the next section. A copy of all the orders is stored in the order file where the invoices and the parts are checked against the goods received and are then attached to the order. If everything is correct, the Peter will update the order and stock details on the system. He will then pass the invoices, including the cost of the parts, to the Mary and Kim to look after the accounting and the payments. right? So that means um, uh, when the when the invoices comes, so because invoices are comes with the order, right? So looks like the processing supply invoices, this one can be accessed by the order clerk as well, right? Not only the administrator. So I just put like that. Okay. So that is what we mean by this sentence. Okay. Um, and then it says Mary or Kim will pay the invoices within 10 days, right? So I think we have some payment, right? Yeah. So this payment process handled by the administrator. So we already recognize that. Um, if invoices haven't been paid within 10 days, the auto notification will be sent to their email to remind them that the orders are outstanding. Or maybe we can have another use case, a time-based use case. We can say inform um, so inform payment due to the supply. So it's actually linked with the administrators, right? Yeah. At the end of the month, what pay during the month, right? So at the end of the month, the system will generate reports on invoices paid during the month. The part lists details, the names of the part, quantities, blah 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 blah. I think we can handle that um, here, right? So let's assume that all these supply and parts related reports handled by this process. Okay. So we already have something to handle these kind of reports, so we don't need another one. Most of the data entry involves simple business transaction, recording customer information, job information, part information, supply information, managing orders, receiving payments, and making payments. As mentioned previously, variety of information extracted from the system through the inquiries and the generation of periodic reports. This information is by Jeff, the owner of the garage, to manage the business. Okay, so that's something. That's all I think we have, right? So what we have done here now, we that is a step one. So we identified all the roles, right? And we identify all the use cases. Now these use cases are quite little different to what we have identified. Maybe, or sometimes it may be similar. Some use cases, right? And then we identify who are the actors involved in each of these use cases, right? So these are the step one and this is a step two. So now the next step is maybe this is step one. The step two is now we can generate the use case diagrams. So what we can do is now what we can go to diagrams.net. This is the program we are using. All right, now let's see what are the these are the symbols we need to use, right? So we need to have stick figure, right? So stick figure shows you the role, right? So these are the roles, right? So we have identified the roles, and then this box is the boundary of your system, right? A subsystem or what? Yeah, subsystem, right? And then we have the use cases, right? and then we have these links, right? So these are the symbols, so very simple symbols we need, right? And also if we have include and extend, we need a kind of dash arrows, okay? So let's see whether we have these symbols in our diagrams here. Let's see, maybe we can go to UML here. So the UML, yep, so we have 6-figure here, right? So that we need this symbol, right? And we need use case. Okay, so this is the use case symbol. We need that one. And we need maybe I can actually take this one to show the bound. Okay, so I can remove this and I can place the use cases. Can I place the use cases here? No. No. Okay. So we need to think about something else. Let's see whether we can use the rectangle. Maybe what we can do is we can drag and drop. Let's see. No, now it's okay. Yeah. Yeah. So this is how we can design. Yeah. So you need to play with it and see how it goes. Okay. And then yeah, so we can actually use the same. Right. All right. Now let's draw the diagrams. Right now in your assignment, what you need here one diagram for the whole system, whole subsystem, and then two diagrams to represent two users. Right now here we have plenty of users or plenty of roles. Let's say let's take so let's actually now I have lots of use cases, so it will take a huge space for me to design the diagram. So I need to have actually, now let me actually design my first one. So this is my subsystem, right? So I need to have a lot of use cases. So how many use cases I have basically? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Oh, okay. So there are 17 use cases. So that's plenty. Maybe we can make it a little smaller. Can you guys see this my screen? Can you see? I'll try to actually. Is it clear? Yeah. Okay. Can I make it a little bit something like? Okay. All right. Now let's actually create the use cases. First one is process custom inquiries. So what I can do is I can copy paste this one, isn't it? So process custom inquiries. So likewise, I can just duplicate. The second one is maintaining the customers. Okay, let me duplicate. Third one is process customer services, custom invoices. Then let me duplicate again. Process supply invoices. Duplicate. process customer payments, process supplier payments, can make it a bit nicer. So let me actually keep only these things for the time being, because since I have a lot of use cases. So let's assume that we have only these, because otherwise I'm running out of space. Because you need to have actually, I think 6, yeah, 6 use cases. Keep it like this. Actually, what you need is, once you have organized these use cases, oops, what's happened? Let me organize this first. All right, so now we have the actors. Let's take these 3 actors here. So we have administrator, customer, and the order clerk, right? So here in this space we have 3 actors. So let's take these 3 actors. So this is so how to name this one? This is administrator. And I can actually duplicate. Maybe I can put order clerk. And then I can duplicate again the custom. I will place it here. Customer. Right. So basically the administrators can access all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 use cases, right? Then I can use actually one of these lines. Oops. Can I? Oops. Can I take this line? Yeah. So I can duplicate another line here. And duplicate. And duplicate. Duplicate another one. Right. So okay. So we gave access to all 6 for the administrator, and then customer can access process custom inquiries one. So this one can be moved by these 2, right? Okay. So I can duplicate another one. Maybe we can take here. Right, and then process custom invoices again can be accessed by the customer. And what else? Process customer payments. this one. And then the order clerk can access process supply invoices. Okay, this one. Maybe I can place this one here as well. Take line. Right, so that's, and then remember you need to write the subsystem name here. Okay, let me name this one as what is this? We are giving a name for this car management system or something, right? So we can give a name for this subsystem. So I just take the text box here. Car management or car repair management system or something like that. Yes. So car repair management system. So assume that I have put everything because I don't have room for put everything. So I can put everything. So this is your subsystem perspective. So that is what they are asking you to design here, right? One diagram for the whole subsystem. So this is for the whole subsystem. Okay. And also you need to think about the include and extend relationships as well. So for example, let's say let's think about something that we need any subroutine. So for example, now say process supplier invoices. In this case, we may need to access in here. We need to actually see who is this supplier, so more details regarding the supplier. So actually that is a very good idea. You need to put that as well in your so this use case probably may be access maintain supplier or yes, so the maintain supplier use case, right? So you can actually place that somewhere somewhere here, right? So let's say, so I have another use case. Where is my use case box here? So I can put use case saying maintain suppliers, right? So maintain suppliers. So this use case taking the service from this use case, right? For that we need dash, so dash arrow, right? Okay, so dash, we can make it a dash arrow and put the dash line between these two. And probably can go here, the right hand side. Line probably end. Can put the line in here like this, right? And then probably can put a kind of a small now remember when you put the extend relationship, sorry, include relationship, we need to actually name it like where is that example? Yeah, so we need to use this name, right? Include Maybe we can use a text box to name it. So we can use a small text box here. You can say include. Right. So that means this process includes this subroutine, right? Now remember, this subroutine or this use case not directly accessed by uh, administrator, that they can access actually through this. Maybe they can only view anything, right? Just view the supplier details by going through this. They can't do anything directly, the administrator. So this is actually completely handled by the order clerk, right? In another subs, another. So we are not going to show that here. Or if you want, actually, you can show that in this case, because since we have the order clerk here, since order clerk can maintain that process, maybe you can actually link it, show that order clerk is the one who is maintaining that, right? And similarly, you can put the extend relationship with relationship as well. For example, let's say whether we can put an extend relationship here. Okay, let's say okay, process customer payment. So let's say we hear this one. Estimate the time. So there's no actually proper extend here. Maybe we can think about something. Process custom inquiries, maintain customers process. Let me think about something relevant. Estimate the time. Say, for example, so the customers, right? So when they are trying to pay um, for the payment or for the invoices, right? They also wanted to know, they can actually see what is the problem of their vehicle, right? So probably what we can do is we can provide that extend capability to this particular use case by giving some access, diagnose problem use case, right? I think that is appropriate, right? If the customer needs, they can actually access that as well, right? Access and just have a look at that the system and see what kind of problem their vehicle is facing, right? Maybe that might be a good extend relationship. So let me put that in this diagram. We can say here, let me make it, let me make smaller use case here. So what is the name of the use case? Diagnose problem. Right, so the extend means it goes from here to there, right? So actually let me duplicate this. this one. No, you need to actually. So let me take another dash line. So this time here. So it goes from this side, okay. Right, so this is extend, right? So yes, like this, okay. So maybe we can put a kind of a this kind of condition. So this kind of condition we can say in this diagram, saying, okay, if customer required, they can see the problem of their vehicle, right? So I can put the condition here. So let's put the condition if customer requested. Right, if customer requested, they should be able to get an idea about their problem of the vehicle, right? Right. So this is sorry, this need to delete this part. I don't need that one. Right. So did you get an idea now? So this is for the whole subsystem. Okay, this is for the whole subsystem. So you need to have one of these diagrams to submit for your whole subsystem, right? All the actors, and then it required for you to submit another 2 diagrams for individual actors, right? So what you can do next is like this. You can have another diagram. Now let me that part is very easy. Let me duplicate the whole. I think, can I duplicate the whole now? So what I can do is let me duplicate. Let me cut. I think when you select everywhere these things, you can. No, it's not. So you can have another diagram. Let me have another. Can I have another one here? Right. So this is for so let me paste this one here. I didn't paste. Sorry. So copy, paste. No, there's a no copy paste. Duplicate. Right. So in this case, what you can say here, car management subsystem administrator. Only the administrator. For the administrator, what you can say is now administrator have access to all these use cases, right? So you can duplicate all these and list here and only show the administrator. So that is one actor, right? And then you can show another diagram for another actor, saying, for example, order clerk, right? So order clerk has access to these two, right? So we can say another one saying order clerk. Now let me do that one and show what you need to do. So I just copy paste. There is no copy paste, sorry. So I need to duplicate. Sorry. Let me do it very quickly. 2, 3, 4, 5, duplicate, and 6. Okay. So let me duplicate the administrator quickly. And then right, and then these two. This extend relationship process custom invoices. And there's another one here. So include sorry, this one is going. Can do the same thing here as well. So here the extend rate. And so the way around, sorry. Extend. Extend. And then you need to actually duplicate this as well. Right, so this is the second diagram. Yeah, Chingsen, sorry, I didn't. Sometimes I'm messing up this. But anyway, I just duplicated it. This is the administrator. Now, this is the whole subsystem perspective. This is the administrator perspective, right? And then similarly, you can have another diagram for maybe the customer perspective. In that case, you need to actually include only three and then with this four, right? Right, so you can have another diagram. So that is what actually you need in your subsystem or for this week submission for your subsystem. Okay, right. So this example, yeah. So any questions so far, guys? I think this is very interesting. It's not that difficult, right? This submission. Any questions? And the most important thing is you need to name it, right? Please make sure you name correctly, identify the use cases correctly, put, extend, and include relationships, and then yeah, and then these three I mean diagram. That's all you need to do for this week's submission, right? So I haven't done the whole subsystem perspective for the Acme Garage because there are 17 use cases. It's not practical for me to include everything here, right? So otherwise, you can have actually all 17 use cases with all actors listed in your use case diagram. Okay. Right, so that is it. That's about the use case diagrams. Any questions, guys? Anything you want to clarify? Are you all okay with this submission? Yeah. Can I have your feedback? Are you okay, or do you need to? Do you need any clarifications? Can you do one more for the customer? Okay, so all right. So let's do the customer. It's not that difficult. So let me. So the same thing. Copy, duplicate. So this is the customer perspective, right? So I can copy this, take here, and then change this to customer, administrator to customer. Right, and then you can have customer, duplicate, oops, no, delete. Place, maybe you can place the customer here. And then what you need is 1, 2, 3, 4, these four use cases. So I just take this down. So it's easy. So let me actually switch off my So this is the customer perspective, right? So only three use cases with the extend relationship. Okay. So this is what you need to submit in this submission. So then what you can do is you can copy and paste the diagrams um, to the Word document. All right. Any questions, guys? Are you clear about what you need to do? Yeah, it's clear. Darcy, Kimsen, Maria, Precious, Rory, Ryan, Tron. Yeah. So it's very straightforward. So all what you need to do is be careful about these include and extend relationship, right? Um, because you need to include that as well, even though it's not mentioned in the assignment. But these are very important aspects in any system, right? You need to think about which one we need to extend, which one need to include, right? And yeah, so and one more thing, you need to be careful about use cases. Okay, use cases. So if you follow my approach, now remember what we have done. I first clarified the roles. I then listed all the use cases. I just reclassified my use cases according to this object oriented model, right? And then I listed who are the other actors involved in that use case. And then next step is to go to diagrams.net program, and then I draw it using correct symbols, right? And then make sure that if you have a say for example time-based event, you can put at as a time, right? Or maybe you can have another subsystem, who knows, right? If you have another subsystem, maybe one of your colleague is doing something that probably one use case. Use case may be done by another subsystem, right? In that case, just write that subsystem name, right? Uh, Name, right? Maybe it is accounting or something like that, accounting system, something like that. So to indicate it, okay. So yeah, that's what you need to do in this week's submission. I think it's very straightforward. If you follow these my guidelines, it's not that difficult.